Are you better off today than you were 1,000 years ago? Are you better off today than you were 500 years ago? Are you better off today than you were 100 years ago? What's interesting is polls say that most people feel that they are worse off today than we were in the past. More than just themselves personally, but they believe the world is worse off, that the world is heading in the wrong direction. They feel that the world is becoming more dangerous. People say it, but are they correct? We're constantly flooded by stories of war, but as a percentage of the planet's population, this is the most peaceful planet Earth has ever known. How about slavery? That's a big one. Now we can talk about wage slavery, but I'm talking about strictly old school slavery. Again, we are the freest humanity has ever known. Death by disease, once again, the best the human species has ever known. Starvation and famine, also the best humans have ever known. Life expectancy, the longest ever documented. People having a form of government which recognizes basic human rights, again, the best the world has ever known. This doesn't mean there aren't people living without rights. It doesn't mean there aren't people who are in war. It doesn't mean that there aren't people starving. But by a global historic perspective, as a species, we're doing better than we have ever done. So why is it so widely believed that everything is so bad? Why are so many people so afraid of continuing these advancements? Why are so many people wanting to revert to some era from the past? I think there are three key elements. One is the persistent apocalyptic end to humanity, which is so commonly believed amongst the Western world. Belief is an extremely powerful force. Belief is more powerful than fact. Even though the facts tell us that there is less pain and suffering taking place on the planet, the belief that we're headed to hell in a handbasket is stronger than those facts. Belief will ignore all facts and focus on anything that confirms the belief. The second key factor is the news cycle and the political system, both of whom gain wealth and power by convincing the public of how dire everything is at every moment. Establishment political powers and the news media both have only to gain by keeping the public focused on the belief of impending doom and disaster. The third key factor is the most complicated, and you can call this one my opinion if you want to, but I don't believe it's just an opinion. Do you know what the term shell shock is? The term came into existence during World War I. Prolonged exposure to extreme stresses overload our nervous system. The human brain can only handle so much stress before it results in permanent psychological damage. Now think about this. If you took a person from 10,000 years ago and advanced that same person in time 1,000 years, their knowledge and skill set would be sufficient for them to live just as they had been living, with perhaps just minor alterations to catch up with the times. You could take that same person from 10,000 years ago and advance them ahead 5,000 years, and largely that person's skill set would still be adequate for them to live. The vast majority of human history, the knowledge that your great-great-great-great-grandparents had, was sufficient for you. Changes to necessary skill sets to live happened over the course of thousands of years. And then as we started moving into the early industrial age, changes and required skill sets started happening over the course of hundreds of years. It wasn't until the last couple hundred years that there would be a child born who would easily not be able to live based solely upon the skill sets of that same child's parents. They would need to learn an entire new skill set. The speed of this requirement for learning and adapting to new skill sets has continued to accelerate. At first, it was just generational. The skill set of someone born in 1950 was not sufficient for someone who was born in 1970. The skill set of someone from 1970 not sufficient for someone who was born in 1990. And now adopted skill sets are even more frequent than generational. The skill set that you learned and had by the time you were 25 years old will not be sufficient by the time you are 35. Technology and the use of these new technologies is now progressing so rapidly that we have to relearn how to operate in our society decade to decade, and in some cases even more frequently. Take the phone that is in your hand. You are having to relearn how to operate that device almost yearly. This continual need to reprogram our minds has never existed before in human history. This is unique to our species. This is fundamental to the extreme stress load that everyone feels. Why almost everyone feels like they're about to have a mental breakdown at any moment. It's why ordinary life is creating mental traumas that are very close to what we used to call shell shock and now refer to as post-traumatic stress. Having to relearn how to live life year after year is a brain trauma. Our brains were not built to be reprogrammed at this pace. Learn something, and just about the time you think you have it figured out, you've got to reboot the system and learn something entirely new. This creates system overload. And one of the results of that overload is the desire to want to see civilization collapse. Just put an end to it already. Stop the bus and let me off. Look around, especially at those under 50 years old. Look around and ask them how much they desire to see it all just disappear, even at the risk of their own life and their own existence. If you're not already aware of how many are going to say yes, just end this world already, you might be shocked to discover it. If you like these videos, share, like, favorite, and follow for more. Every share really makes a big difference. Everyone have a good day out there.